Welcome to this week's Rob's Country. We're going to be talking about a lot of things today, including, well, what do you need to do to a garden hose to make it better? And you probably can't think of anything, but by the end of the program, you'll know. We're also going to be looking at what trees to buy, where to put them, and why not have the odd one standing in a corner and flowering in the spring. And we take a serious look at fodder beet, and we're going to be talking business. But first of all, late winter.
Yes, late winter. Here we are today, fortnight from spring, and we're at 4 degrees. Round the wrong way, really. June,
Yes.
June and May were warm, but look, we'll take the chilling. We still need chilling in a lot of horticultural crops. So just to slow those buds down, they're on the move. They think it is springtime. So this chilling breeze that's come through, event that's come through in the last 2 or 3 days, will actually do a heck of a lot of good. Slow down things and probably bring things back to if there is a normal.
Yeah, well, normal is a very vague sort of a term. What happens when you've got bud burst on its way? Does it literally just chemically say woo?
Well, it'll get to a point, Rob, where you'll get, like some pears and cherries and whatever, what they call a white tip. But in general terms, most of the fruit crops are green tip. And when you get to green tip, it gets to a certain point, it won't stop. It'll just keep on developing, irrespective of the weather. Fortunately, with this weather event we've got now, they aren't at that point of continuing on. So they'll actually, I say they go back to bed. They actually just, they don't literally close, but they stop. And that's really good.
I must confess, I was not wanting to get out of bed the last few mornings myself, so
right.
I know how the bud feels. Is that across the country? How's North looking?
Yeah, no, the same. Stone fruit's on its way in Hawke's Bay, of course, and the cherries aren't too far away either. But overall, this chilling is right through the country, and it'll do the job really well. Every crop we've looked at over the last probably 3 weeks, we've all said, oh yeah, it's about 3 to 5 days earlier than it should be. Well, this will bring it back to what we would consider to be normal, and that's going to be good. I would like to think that bud break, and when they do get going and they get to the point where they can't stop, will be in about a fortnight's time, and that'll be really good. It's been interesting weather. We've had these northerlies that have actually been quite cold. Left a bit of snow on the mountain. Southerlies come up, left a bit of snow on the mountain. Northerlies come along and taken it off the next day. So we've been sort of vice versa for about a fortnight. This one here now I think is going to stick a bit, which will be good.
How concerned are you about frost? Because there's a lot of snow to melt up there.
Very. Skies are clearing quite quickly this year. Now this to me is a real good reason to believe that we are coming off La Nina and coming into El Nino. And the El Nino brings the northerlies, and we're having northerly conditions early in the year. I mean, 21 degrees in about a fortnight ago. Crazy, beautiful northwest day you'd expect to get in November. And then next thing, it's really cold. So that's the weather pattern changing, the sea warming up in the southern isolation, and we're on the change. So what will happen here, Rob, we'll get more northerly winds, and we'll get warmer temperatures, and we're going to get dry conditions. We've had a lot of rain. We've had probably more than two-thirds of our rain.
Had the whole annual rainfall.
Yeah, all the way through the country. But the good Lord will give us so much rain, and then they generally stop. We here in Canterbury, we normally have about 650 millimetres. In Nelson, Marlborough, in Nelson it's more 700. Hawke's Bay, it varies a bit, but it's around about 700 or 800. And as you get further north, you get the higher rainfalls, but more humid temperatures. So things are going to dry off a little bit. And I think this is the time that growers have got to start looking and thinking about, let's get our irrigation system maintained, looked at, and ready to go, because one day, and it'll be earlier than they think, we'll need to be actually irrigating.
Yeah, Tony Daverin from Hydro Services says 1st of September, but he didn't know about all that snow that's arrived.
No, that's right. Well, the snow, you see, snow can bring that clear days, and it'll sunshine and we'll get frost, and frost actually draws the moisture out of the ground too. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, as it were. And it's deceptive. All of a sudden, the first 50 millimetres of soil can be quite dry, and it can be quite wet down below, and there can still be a puddle or two around. It's really weird, because at the moment, if you go out there, it's muddy as anything, and growers are just about out of guts full of it, really, but that'll change very quickly.
With frosts, we're looking at copper and probably overhead water.
We are. Well, with this green tissue starting to appear, and soon they'll turn into flower, petals and things like that in the next 2 to 3 weeks in some crops, we need to have protection there. Get that copper on there for fungicide, as a fungicide, but also as a bacteriostat. And so it removes the bacteria and it lessens the chance of damage. It'll probably stand about 1.5 degrees, minus 1.5 degree of a frost by the bacteria being removed from the plant because of the copper, and water freezes after bacteria, so or bacteria freezes before water. So if we remove the bacteria, we've got a much greater chance of protection of those very fine tissue.
Are you looking at mowing between the lines if you're doing crops?
In about a month's time to 6 weeks' time, we'll start that strategy. At the moment, there's not a heck of a lot of growth going on between the rows of whatever they may be, apple trees or grapes. But another month to 6 weeks, we'll have to start getting the grass down or sprayed out, which is not a bad idea. Even if you go over across clover and grasses and whatever with a bit of Roundup, it knocks it out for about a month, 5 weeks, it comes away again. And that's actually not a bad way of starting your frost protection also. But besides copper, this time of the year, we've got to look at sulphurs. We're actually starting the fungicidal program for protection, plant protection, leaf spots and black spots and botrytis and things like that. That program starts generally the very early part of September. So there's plenty coming on in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Herbicides?
Herbicides. Right at the moment, we should be, if the ground conditions allow us, we should be putting on our last of our residual herbicides, ones that go into the soil and stay there for a little while. And there are various concoctions go on that we use far less residual herbicides now than we've ever used. We usually use just knockdowns, which is really good for the soil. So those regimes should be going right now. In fact, I was talking to some growers about that this morning. And once they're out of the way, you've got a clear start for the spring. Then you'd only have to use a knockdown probably November, December, just to keep the grasses, the summer grasses and the summer weeds that will come up at bay. The nasty one is the perennial, the old annual, and that's the blooming Californian thistle. And with these wet conditions, the ground's very muddy and quite tight at the moment. When it starts to dry out, it'll open up a little bit and they'll come out through the cracks and crevices of the soil and they'll be there in abundance. So that's one little enemy we'll have to start fighting in about 3 weeks' time.
Are you advocating mowing or spraying?
Spraying, letting them come up to the rosette stage, letting their first initial leaves that come up quite erect, let them go down flat onto the ground. As soon as they go flat onto the ground, there's another bunch of leaves that are quite erect. That's the real time that's the good time to hit a thistle because it's got a lot of leaf area then and it's got a small root stool. It's got a tap root, so you get in there and get it nabbed, let it suck in all as much as it can because it's growing quite rapidly, and it's rhizomous roots zone underneath, and it'll travel. The herbicide travels along those and kills the one beside it or the one that's in under a bush that you can't directly spray, but it'll actually kill it through the translocation, through the root system.
Okay. Now, looking at overall herbicides, we've still got this accountability, so we need to be worrying about making sure that all our paperwork's done.
Absolutely. There's various electronic programs out there for growers to use, and they should be getting those up to date, especially if they've done some new planting or they've restructured their properties in some way or other. Get that up to date first, and then they'll start putting their crop inputs in. It's more and more important today, Rob, than it's ever been. These guys have got to be GAP, New Zealand GAP approved or Euro GAP approved. They've got to be accredited in terms of grow safe, and they've got to be approved handlers. And all of those things must be recorded these days. If they're not, they've got every chance of not getting their produce exported or consumed on a local market.
Looking back over last season, how's the wine?
Wine's pretty good. It was a pretty tricky vintage, to be honest, and to be fair, it wasn't a vintage, but the winemakers have been working pretty hard through the autumn and through the winter, and I have had the pleasure of tasting a few early whites, and they're splendid actually, especially Pinot Gris and some of the Rieslings, but the reds and that need a little bit more yet. But we've got an abundance of very good winemakers in New Zealand, and they have had to work for their money this year.
Oh dear, how sad, Jim, never mind.
So, but we'll try and keep making sure the quality really comes from the vine.
Well, you've got to keep doing that quality control, don't you?
Absolutely.
It's interesting that Pinot Gris has now become the wine with so many people.
Yep. Well, it's a very durable aromatic wine. It's pleasant to drink on its own on a Sunday afternoon or whatever, or on a Tuesday morning, I suppose. but really, it's one that the female fraternity do enjoy, and it's one that you can put with a number of food, whether they be red meat or white meat, or salads or whatever. So it's quite a versatile, and some of them are quite cloyy, some of them are quite heavy in the mouth, and others are quite light and pleasant, but generally usually very aromatic. The one thing about a Pinot Gris, you can't line 10 Pinot Gris up and have the same wine, because they may be the same varietal, but they'll have different characteristics from the land that they've come from.
Is it my imagination, or is there a swing back into Chardonnay and possibly away from Sauv Blanc?
Oh, not your imagination, Rob. That's a true story. There's still a huge consumption of of Sauvignon Blanc, but no. The palate is mature. As the palate matures, and probably the person who's consuming matures a little, they want to have a look at some other variable wines, and they really want to have a look at wines that are going to suit foods. And the good old Chardonnay doesn't miss a beat, especially when it comes around to seafood or some heavier salads and things like that, with avocados and things like that. With it, the Chardonnay really comes home to roost.
Comment I keep being given is, don't like the big buttery ones, but I love the unoaked or slightly oaked Chardies.
Yeah, the big heavy butter ones, you know, they have gone. The heavy oaked ones, people don't like that. The palate have changed in that respect. But there's still some quite mouth-filling Chardonnays out there. And of course, the other part of the Chardonnay can go into the champagnes, along with your Pinot Noir or Pinot Meuniers. Now, those bubblies are really starting to become popular, and we've got some excellent bubblies out there in New Zealand, especially coming out of Hawke's Bay and Marlborough. They're wonderful, and they're Blanc de Blanc, which is Chardonnay on Chardonnay, and then the Chardonnay.
Blanc de Blanc means?
That's what Blanc de Blanc means. Yeah.
Chardonnay
Blanc is
Chardonnay.
white, of course, but Blanc de Blanc is Chardonnay on Chardonnay. So it's Chardonnay, no Pinot Noir in that particular champagne. Or bubbly. I shouldn't call it champagne.
No, but you know, we know what you mean.
Yes,
I don't think there's going to be any lawsuits, Chevy.
Method champagnat is what we should be calling it. But look, there's some wonderful drinks here, and I think it's a lovely way to start an evening or an afternoon, and having a nice New Zealand bubbly. And to be fair, they aren't expensive. There's some really good ones out there that are pretty much inexpensive. And what the heck's a few dollars if you're going to enjoy yourself anyway?
We better do some work, and we better get some quality control going here, Jim. Thank you very much indeed. After the break, what could you possibly do to make a hose better? We find out straight after the break. Back to Rob's Country. Well, for many people, whether you're in a small block holding or you're doing something in glass houses, tunnel houses, or a domestic garden, a hose is an hose, but apparently no longer. Nick, what have you done to bring the common hose into the 21st century?
Well, it's a very valid question, Rob, and the team at Gardena are very clever guys and girls. They basically talk to research groups, and they do a whole lot of R&D, and what a lot of consumers were saying was the tired of hoses getting tied up in the garden and popping off at the tap fitting and water gushing everywhere and
all of that.
All of that, that's right. So what they did was they sat down and they effectively put together a whole new hose design around those key things. And this hose range is called Power Grip. And the whole idea with this hose is you can see these orange stripes here. Well, they've actually got little ridges all along them. And the actual Gardena fitting here fits into that and bites into those little ridges. So on the inside of this are little claws, and they grab hold of that ridge. And what that means is that it's got 70% more retention at the tap. So when you're out there watering your garden and away you go, and then maybe one of the kids bangs into the hose.
Oh, it doesn't have to have that.
Well,
mine just comes off in my hand and
Yeah.
it gets me in the face and down the front every time.
Very frustrating. So you won't get that with the new Gardena Power Grip hoses. It's a very simple but very clever design, and that runs all the way along the hose. And we've got two different lengths. We've got a 30 metre for your normal residential, and a 13 metre and a 15 metre. But we also are looking into 19 millimetre diameters, so the bigger diameter, good for sort of larger produce growing businesses and so forth, and
so
also
that's
longer
your
lengths.
small block holders
Yeah,
and your
small block
nurseries.
holders, that's right, and those hoses can be 50 metres, maybe even 100 metres. So we're looking for feedback from the market in that regard. So if anyone out there wants to get a big bore hose in 100 metres, then certainly let us know.
Well, your phone number is going to be at the end of the
Well,
program.
that's right.
It's your phone number, not
that'd
anybody
be
else's.
great.
Can you still cut it with a pocket knife?
Yeah, the hose is designed so that you can cut it to the length that you require. Certainly, there's no wire in these hoses, it's all virgin material. The actual hose is designed with a black rubber interior which will not allow algae growth, and there's no regrind, so we don't put any other old material into the hose when we make it. It's all new material. And then it's got a carbon infused polyester thread which winds in a helical spiral all the way around the hose. And then coming back the other way is this very high quality polyester thread that's the silver that you can see coming through here, and that winds the opposite way. So you've got two counter-rotating helical spirals, and what they do is they give it the strength, but they also, the spacing of the white thread, if you can see the shot here, you see this one here, the spacing of the white is very close together. And the whole idea is that with this hose, it's inspired by nature. If you've got a great big snake with great big spines in its back, or vertebrates, it won't be as flexible as a little grass snake with smaller vertebrates in its back. So the spacing of the white thread is what gives the hose its flexibility. So it's quite innovative between your standard hose. Yeah.
What about the knotting up?
Yeah, well, knotting and kinking, that's what most people get frustrated with. And the beauty of this design is, one, the longitudinal power grip stripes keep the hose from twisting, so you don't get that twisting up, and that puts tension in the hose, which then can make it more likely to coil and kink on itself. And then the spacing of the polyester threads give it the hose its flexibility, and if it does start to look like it's going to kink, it'll just push itself out, and you won't have those sorts of problems in the garden. Yeah, it's great.
That's the other frustration, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, most definitely, yeah. And the other great thing with this new range is that they're completely phthalate free, so there's no toxins or heavy metals in this hose. And when the dairy industry and so forth are fairly aware of those sorts of things, and washing down sheds and so forth. So, you know, we're really looking forward to this range being a big part of our sort of agricultural market that's out there.
I understand there were tests done about the impurities in traditional hoses. That
yeah, I mean, you remember as a young kid racing around in the garden, and you get a bit thirsty, and you go and grab the hose which has been sitting in the sun all afternoon and have a drink, and it would just taste like warm plastic. That's phthalate. So with all these new hoses, there's no phthalate in them at all, which is great if you've got your own organic garden patch at home, or you're doing something on a larger scale. There's no phthalate or toxins going into the ground and hence into the plants.
There's a rumour went round that it caused infertility, but it was never. We were told never to rely on it.
So yeah, it depends who was getting tested, I guess.
Just don't rely on it. There are other methods that are more foolproof.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the interesting thing is phthalates are now illegal in Europe. So you can't make products that are transporting water of this nature in Europe. So
well, that's going to open the market up for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So and we'll be making a bit more noise about that over the coming time as we launch this product.
When are these coming onto the market?
Available in stock now, and available in your local hardware store from now. So there's a little bit of a phasing. What's the saying, Nick? It's an all good leading retailer. That's right. That's right.
So if you go to your store that don't have it, well, it's not a leading retailer.
Well, that or they have yet to place their order. But it's very early days. So what are we? 2 weeks into August, and the stores are all moving into the new ranges very soon. So
cost difference?
Comparable. Yeah, we've really worked hard to keep the price pretty much of a muchness, even though this is a better product. No phthalate, power grip stripes, more retention on your fittings, and the new design within the flexibility of the hose. We still maintained the good retail price points.
You're going to tie those into timers, because I know that your take-home message is best time to water is early morning before everybody gets to work.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't want to be out there at 5 o'clock in the morning.
No, I don't.
No. I appreciate you like your lions, from what I heard earlier, Rob. So we've got a new range of water timers, and they've stepped up from the previous models. The previous models had like a little wee stopwatch type display that you try and set all your parameters in. And with this new model here, you can see that every aspect of how long it's going to run for, what day it's going to run on, how many times per day, and when I want it to start, it's all there on the LED, or LCD. So really easy to use, and these are very reliable, and you can basically set this to come on at 5:30 in the morning and run for half an hour, and come on later on in the day, up to 3 times a day if you so wish.
I'm seeing the Nick as somebody in a nursery who doesn't want to pay somebody to stand with a hose in their hand.
Very much so, especially in combined with this product here and this product here. Excuse me, it looks like a bit of technology, but this here is a 6-cycle water timer. and that will then do up to 6 cycles in a day. And this is a water distributor that'll take that water supply and channel it out to 6 different outlets. I've got 2 capped off here at the moment. And I can then have water going to my vegetables at 6 o'clock in the morning for half an hour, and then I can have water going to the flower beds, or then onto some shrubs, or onto some produce that I was growing. So you can distribute your water up to 6 different areas at up to 6 different times a day using a combination of these 2 products. So it takes all the manual labour out.
Coming back into a nursery, you can actually sort of run hoses.
Oh, definitely.
Discreetly.
Yeah, definitely. And irrigation as well. So you could run one of these outlets to your polytube pipe irrigation and to all of your little sprinklers and water drippers and all that sort of
water
setup.
drippers, that's a thought.
Definitely, yeah. It's a very good product. And the neat thing about it over the predecessor is if I don't want to run water to a particular area, I can very easily just turn off that valve and it will stop running the water to that outlet. So it's quite innovative.
How complicated are the settings for your timers? Because, you know, I'm 60 mumble years old.
Well, that's the beauty of the LED display like this. So previously it was a little complicated because you didn't have the visual information there. You had to work your way through it and kind of make a lot of notes about what you've done and what you plan to do. This here now, because everything is so visible, I can see what time it's going to go off on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday through to Sunday, obviously. And all the different settings are all easy to adjust. And there's a full manual if you which I always recommend that you read, but no one will.
It's the last resort, Nick. You know
it
that.
is. But something I'd love to say about water timers is you can actually take the face off and you can do all your programming sitting in the lounge comfortably, and get it all set up, and then you can go outside and put it onto your unit and away it goes. You don't have to be down crouched by the tap, popping everything in.
No, very briefly, I saw a battery.
Got to be an alkaline battery. Ladies and gentlemen, please put an alkaline battery in your Gardena water timer. It'll save us all a lot of headaches. Lithium-ion doesn't work and your normal heavy-duty battery doesn't work, just alkaline.
So there you are, that's what they have done to the common hose and for the timers and all that sort of... On that sort of note, we're going to be having a look at Lushington's nursery in Tynwald in mid-Canterbury about what we should be planting as far as trees are concerned, and just a couple of little hints that you will want to do at your place. Welcome back to Rob's Country. Well, as I said, we went to find out what we should be planting tree-wise, but for the people who are planting trees, once again, it's been an interesting season.
We had an extremely wet autumn, and up until now we've had a very mild winter. Not too many frosts and not too wet.
So does that make for good tree planting or not?
Yes, it does, yes. The only thing you'd need to worry about is if the ground was frozen, but it's a very good time now to be planting.
We are a country of extremes when it comes to weather. Does that make it hard for people to choose trees?
A little bit. In mid-Canterbury, as you probably know, we get the hurricane force nor'westers thrown at us. We get extremes of temperature, very cold and very hot. So it makes it a wee bit tricky.
I guess the thing to do is to talk to your nursery person and say, this is my climate, I do get snow or I don't get snow.
Yes, because in Canterbury, of course, we have, a lot of different corridors of climate, I guess. We have under the foothills, we have the plains, and then along the coast as well. So they're quite different conditions in all those areas.
Can you control wind with trees?
Some people would like to be able to do that. Yes, you can by planting the right height trees and perhaps several layers of shelter belt, like a shorter, maybe a native layer, and then a deciduous layer in the middle, or an evergreen shrub layer, followed by a tree layer. So I think the layering effect is really beneficial for wind.
So the short downwind or upwind?
It's a short downwind.
No, what I'm saying is, do you plant the short stuff where the wind comes from? At the front.
Yeah,
so it sends the wind out.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
A lot of trees lost last September. People replanting?
Yes, they are, but it was a little bit beneficial for dairy farmers because a lot of the farm trees that came out were perhaps ones that were destined to come out for irrigators to go in. It made things easier, but a lot of people lost like big plantations of forest trees as well, which was, really bad news.
Are people replanting with pine? Because it's always been a staple.
We don't hear a lot of people replanting in pines, actually. No. Maybe different types of conifers, but not so many pines now.
So that's more now like a woodlot rather than a shelter belt?
Yes.
I want to talk to you a wee bit about specimen trees, because in my mind, specimen trees should be planted and can be planted, and why not?
As a shelter or just around?
Just to make a farm look really nice. Why not put a flowering cherry in a corner?
Absolutely. I think that all of our rural areas could do with improving aesthetically, and what better way to do it than with trees. Beautiful oaks, plane trees, maybe flowering cherries, liquid ambers. They would all enhance the whole area, attract bees for, pollination's a big problem. I think in the corners where the irrigators don't reach, why not plant some beautiful flowering cherries?
What about natives? Are they being used in corners of paddocks as well?
Yes, they are. Yes, quite a bit, because they can stand maybe a bit more damp than other species. Yeah.
And of course
they're evergreen, so that helps.
Are people thinking, Nikki, about birds and bees?
Yes, quite a lot, because there's sort of an international worry really about bees. They seem to be dying off, and hives are getting infected with diseases and that kind of thing. So a lot of people are coming in here wanting to know what to plant to attract bees.
And you're looking at things such as tree lucerne, which is also a fodder feed.
Yes, that's right. A lot of the evergreen bushy shrubs are good at attracting bees, like the viburnums and things like that, which are good on farms.
It's really just a shift in thinking, isn't it, that farmers need to do, just to say, well, let's put 3 flowering cherries in that corner.
Yeah, I think a more holistic view of the farm is in thinking of amenity planting as well as shelter is coming through quite a lot, yes.
And as far as shelter is concerned, centre pivots have got a really bad reputation, but you can grow stuff underneath them.
Yes, a lot of natives have been planted under centre pivots, and we can advise which ones, that will tolerate the wetter soil. And I think that farmers are more environmentally aware now, particularly because they do get a bit of flack from other people, about water quality and all that sort of thing. So I think to be seen to be, planting up all around their milking sheds and things like that, that's happening a lot. Yeah, it's really good.
And shelter is important for stock as well.
Definitely. No one likes to see stock without shelter on one of our really hot, northwest summer days, when it could be in the mid-30s and things like that. So, or for the reverse for cold winds. I think that farmers are much more aware that, people driving by might see, those poor cows or those poor sheep haven't got any shelter from whatever, a southerly or a nor'wester. Whose phone's that? That's you.
So, shade, are people coming in and asking for trees that give shade?
Yes, they are. And a lot of trees... it's really important to know the final shape of a tree. If you want a canopy that's going to provide shade, there's no point in buying an upright tree or a fastigiate tree, as it's called. The ultimate shape and size of a tree is really important to know. when you're actually looking at trees. So if you've got good nursery staff.
I was just going to say, Nikki, the best thing to do is to walk in and say to a nursery person, this is what I want.
Yes, yep. You say this tree, this position is, northerly facing, or just give all the specific, the soil, whether it's near a pond or a stream, or whether it's very dry or, the hungry looking soil, and we'll try and match the tree up with those conditions to the best of our ability.
As you will have gathered, their ability is very, very good. What a wonderful idea just to brighten up your property for the next generations. After the break, we're talking about fodder beet. Back to Rob's Country. Well, fodder beet is something that we've been talking about on Rob's Country now for quite some time, and it's certainly got a hold.
One of the things I wanted to really just focus on today was, how versatile this crop is becoming, and how many people and how many farmers across New Zealand are now identifying it as a crop that they basically can use on their own farm. We're here in a paddock at Brigadier, and we're basically we've got some Angus calves that basically are 100% on this, with about 1.5 kilos of straw a day. And they're putting on excellent live weight gain, and utilisation is superb. But the beauty with fodder beet is that I think in terms of, depending where you are in New Zealand, it's got the opportunity to use it not only as a winter feed like we're doing here, but also as a later spring feed and as an autumn feed. In parts of the North Island, it'll have a lot of opportunity to do that. So it's really, as we learn more about it and learn how the animals adjust to it and perform on it, it's really is making huge leaps forward. I mean, where else can you produce off a hectare 20 tonnes of dry matter in one crop? You can't.
You can't, it's simple as that.
So, and here we've got a bulb here, and this is just a typical Brigadier bulb. The beauty of this is it's 90% above the ground, and it's a lovely soft bulb. And I think one of the things for if you're going to feed young rising 1-year-old animals, then you've got to think about the hardness of the bulb, and the Brigadier is the softest bulb of all the mangel fodder beet varieties. And okay, it's lower in dry matter, but then the bulb is softer. So for the ability to utilise it and to consume it, it's so much better. So I think for farmers, if they're looking at getting into fodder beet, then for the younger animals, certainly you can't go past this variety. If you're looking for adult cows and older animals, then you've got more choice. You can use a higher dry matter bulb if that's what you want to do, like a lifter or another variety. There's plenty of varieties. So, but certainly for the younger animals, use this. And you can see the utilisation. I mean, it's pretty jolly good. These animals have had a shift today already. And by the time the morning comes, they'll have cleaned all those bulbs up.
I'm a wee bit intrigued because it's a brassica type, and yet you're not bulking them out with straw.
No, you've got to give them some straw basically for the fibre, so that you can allow the rumen to function effectively. One of the critical things is around stock introduction. I mean, these animals were introduced over a period of 3 weeks to the crop. So started off with maybe half a kilo a day, and then just slowly built up, and always made sure that they were full before you introduced them to the crop.
Because, why was that?
Well, largely so that they don't gorge themselves effectively, and they've already got fibre in their rumen that they can adjust, and you know, can adjust to that change in diet, and the fibre will offset that. So yes, I mean, you know, you don't want to feed too much straw, because then you're filling them all up on low quality food and not giving them you know, all the goodies. So, you know, this is high energy feed basically.
But the thing that many farmers are trying to avoid is nitrate poisoning and red water and God knows what else.
None of those problems, Rob. No nitrate poisoning, no red water, and if you follow the recipe of introducing them slowly, once they're on the feed like this, then the only thing that you can get potentially, if you don't do that, is acidosis, and with acidosis you can cause the death of the odd animal if you don't introduce them. But look, there's no excuses, to be honest. The recipe's there, people can go and do it. I mean, you know, I've done it in this case myself and haven't had any problems whatsoever, and there's many farmers now around the country that are using it. So, you know, one of the things that I really want to impress to you today is we've got the crop, we've done the work, we know what it will actually do. And for farmers across the country, especially if we're facing into drought in the coming summer, they're talking about El Nino, so, you know, they should be identifying paddocks now, getting them soil tested, and be looking at trying some fodder beet on their own farm.
So very briefly, you said soil testing. What does it want?
You really want to have a pH probably 5.8 to 6, preferably around that, you know, heading towards 6. They're not huge drawers of phosphate, so you do need reasonable P levels, but you don't need to have excessively high P levels, and they're not highly demanding of nitrogen. You will need obviously a bit of nitrogen with the crop, but otherwise they're not demanding of nitrogen. And you know, the beauty of this crop is that we'll be grazing here probably right through until into the beginning of November, the end of October, so we can take this crop right through, and hopefully these animals will continue to put on weight all the way through. And of course the other thing is that these bulbs don't stop growing, so these bulbs are continuing to add dry matter and size as we progress. So you know, that's the other beauty of this, what I call a pretty special species, this thing.
It's not going to run to seed.
No, it won't. Not because it's a biennial, if you know. So that means it seeds every second year. So it's not going to run to seed, no.
Which is pretty handy. After the break, we're going to be looking at the business side of the world and ask the question, what is it that the Chinese want for dinner? Welcome back to Rob's Country. You've got a business guru with me at the moment. So PGG Wrightson, what's going on there?
Well, this week a lot of company results out, and the one that of interest to us in Canterbury is PGG Wrightson. How are they going, and what has been the outcome of having a new managing director? Well, it's all positive, Rob. The revenue was up nicely this year, and so was the profit. The profit was up about 27 million to 42.3 million. So a really solid start for the new managing director, Mark Judy, from the North Island.
So they might pay a dividend?
Well, yes, there is a dividend actually. There is a fully imputed dividend of 3.5 cents per share if you've got Wrightson shares, and you'll get it around about the 26th of the month.
How serious do you see the Fonterra situation with the prices coming down and treasury rates going up and all that sort of thing?
Well, the prediction, of course, is for a $6 milk fat price, and the risk is that it's going to be worse than that. But I have to come back to whether or not $6 is really bad or not bad. For around $8, it looks fantastically great to have $8, and $6 doesn't look very good. But that is actually what the industry was being paid about 2 years ago. So I imagine it's not too hard to adjust to that because it's just going back to what they had. So, you know, in terms of the rural outturn, you would expect a little bit of a softness in the rural towns for sure, as people just simply don't know what the outcome will be. But what is the underlying reason for it? Well, the Chinese are out of the market. They're out of the market for longer than has been anticipated. Clearly their demand last summer was great, and they bought more than they probably needed. Their economy has been slowing, although there are now signs that it's starting to turn around a little bit better. So with them out of the market, you've got a big hole. They take about 46% of our dairy trade after all. So when they come back in, you would expect the market to start to reflect that. So we may escape $6 in terms of the milk fat payout price.
May is a very strong word.
May. But there are a lot of offsets too on that, Rob. You know, the Westpac Bank was out this week with a very good report on this whole scenario and what was happening with Chinese demand in particular. And then you get people saying we have too much running on the Chinese side of things. Well, actually, our trade up there is to about 10 Asian countries, including what are commonly described up there as the city-states. Now, they've all been going up right across. You know, Taiwan is actually going very well for us. Singapore, Hong Kong and other locations up there, and widening out from there. So that's cushioning the slide off in the Chinese demand. But what too is coming through is that there are other positives, like, you know, meat prices, for example. Beef prices are going very well, making exceptional gains. What's the reason for that? Well, chilled and frozen meat doesn't stockpile, doesn't store as well as wholesale milk powder and milk products. So you tend to use them up, so you don't tend to buy in such great demand. So that's why there is there's not a demand side to that. It's just very consistently, and it seems to be moving along. And you know, the risk there is, of course, that that goes off as well. But you know, lamb is moving nicely as well, and wine is going extraordinarily well. But these are small numbers, of course, you know, I admit, compared to dairy. But
grain, have you got a crosshair on grain?
Well, grain is interesting. You know, you're talking about soya and corn prices, and this conflict in the Ukraine is of interest at the moment, politically and diplomatically, because if grain prices soften because falling prices in falling prices in the northern hemisphere, what's the end effect? It certainly means that northern hemisphere producers get cheaper inputs, so they'll start to buy locally. They'll start to lift their output. So the threat to us is there's a risk there that starts to suppress our market slightly. So falling grain prices are not a positive for New Zealand farmers.
So everywhere there's a action, there's a reaction, and it's normally us who are reacting, I guess.
Yeah, there is, and sometimes these things take a long time to work their way through. What we're seeing now is a lot of bank interest, a lot of market interest in these short-term cycles, and essentially they're running in 6-month periods, and you know, the currency is another factor in that, off about 84 cents the US dollar at the moment. Picked up a bit last night when the US dollar got sold off. But it seems to be settling in very nicely, about 84, but we've seen reports from listed public companies this week showing how you can hedge against it in 2 areas, both in terms of transaction and in the translation price. So our dairy exporters are doing exactly that, so you can't read an assumption into it that a fall in the price translates to this or the other anyway. It's probably actually hedged at a totally different number, and that's cushioning things. But the long-term other issue is the caps on agricultural quota, the European dairy quota. That seems to be creeping closer to an outcome. Is that a good thing? I mean, we used to want those dairy quotas to be taken off, but when they're taken off, we're going to see competition from Ireland and other producers. They'll be coming into our space. So, you know, fresh trends emerging, Rob.
What is it that China wants for dinner?
Ah, right, okay. There's a very interesting report out from New Zealand Trade and Enterprise from their regional director in that part of the world. I'll just check my detail on that. Sean Conroy, the regional director of East Asia. Now, the government has for a while been buying very good market research from an Auckland company called Corylus. They're doing brilliant stuff, very deep data analysis. And coming through from that, some big picture things, and we can't get into a report of 158 pages, which it is, but it's well worth reading through NZTNE. It's called What Do the Asians Want for Dinner? It's in two parts in terms of food on one side and then drink or beverage on the other side. And of course it's driven by, you know, the change in their demographics, more people going to the city, incomes rising, so their tastes change. They're interested in food safety as well. We lead the world in food safety, so we can educate them on food safety, help them bring in new food safety regulations, and surely that'll make our trade a lot easier going in as well, because they'll be dealing in a product that they trust and want, which is coming out of New Zealand. But in terms of what do they want, well, one chart took my eye. If I can fish around and find it for you, Rob, the question was how have things changed over 50 years and what was going up and what was going sideways. And just to refer to that, you know, 50 years ago, when the target market was Britain, and our food and beverages were traditional foods that the English liked, and there were almost no consumer-ready packaged products or processed foods whatsoever, and no beverages. I mean, our wine wasn't worth drinking in the 1950s, was it? And it went out in bulk, it went out in dry bag or frozen, and it was targeted at the middleman. It wasn't direct, so there was no marketing. It was all very unsophisticated stuff. Now,
it's very different now.
Very different. Just 3 quick bullet points on Asia. Goes to the Asian bar and restaurant manager now, middle-class Asian consumer. Premium luxury is what they're looking for. Finished goods, almost totally shelf-ready, targeted at the consumer or the food service. And
thank you very much, Eddie. We'll get back to you very, very soon. Your phone numbers that you'll be wanting to jot down on your screen now. I'm Rob Cope-Williams, and yes, I will get him back again, but if you've either been watching or you've just missed Rob's Country, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.